if you're like me, you realize Kuro Neko could have been a lot better. Don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoyed the episode, but there was so much more they could have done with it, and they didn't properly resolve the Lady Noir tension, and if you really think about it, it didn't have much of a lasting impact on the story. And because I can't stop thinking about this, I decided to make this video and share my thoughts with you, in case you feel the same way. I also love writing and have been thinking about this episode way too much, so I wrote a fanfiction for it, giving it a different ending to make the rest of the episode more impactful, and because I was really left wanting more. So, if you want to see a possibility of what could have been, feel free to check the link in the description below. Let's get started. Number 1. The expectations. I know a lot of us were looking forward to a Lady Noir argument, which they really need to have a discussion of some kind, because clearly there was some communication lacking in these past few episodes, as Cat Noir has been feeling very left out and was hurt by finding out that Ladybug has been concealing things from him. And with all the other horrors that she's been using, he feels like he isn't needed anymore. However, Ladybug knows nothing about this because Cat Noir hasn't told her. So I think a lot of us were looking forward to Kuro Neko as being the time when they would finally discuss this, and he would tell her how he's been feeling and they could finally talk it out. Which leads to the second expectation, which I think is Lady Noir angst resolution. Because throughout the season, there has been a lot of tension growing between them, and if they finally had a chance to discuss it, they would have a chance to resolve it. And finally, judging that from the synopsis, Ladybug would have to choose a different Cat Noir, or at least somehow a different Cat Noir would come into play as Catwalker. Ladybug would realize how important the real Cat Noir is to her, as her time spent with Catwalker would remind her that Cat Noir really can't be replaced. And here's what we actually got. Adrien gives up his Miraculous seemingly on a whim. Now, we know it's deeper than that, but in the episode, it doesn't really seem like it. It seems like he just got upset and then that's his solution to everything apparently is just to give up his Miraculous. But okay, I mean, that's pretty consistent with his character. Then we have this ridiculous violin music scene, which, I'm sorry, I could not take it seriously. Like, of course I feel really bad for Adrien, and he looks so sad, but it's just so overly dramatic. Like, I was expecting this episode to be very intense and serious and emotional, but not like this. Not just super over-the-top drama. So that was very unexpected, but okay, that's something we got too. Then we have Ladybug being absolutely enamored with Catwalker. Then we have Catwalker/Adrien resolving things on his own. Ladybug giving no good reason for why she wanted Cat Noir back, except that it wasn't Catwalker because he was too perfect. Then we have a short Lady Noir scene at the ending, which was very sweet and cute, but there wasn't any depth to it. It was very rushed. Especially the classic Eiffel Tower scene, which was cut short by the end card, which is very annoying, especially for edits. There is one more thing I'd like to discuss under what we got before I go into the problems, and that is Ladybug deciding to pick a new Cat Noir who wouldn't be in love with her. As sad as it was to think that she'd be willing to replace Cat Noir, it is actually pretty consistent with her character, at least I found it to be, since Marinette does have a habit of avoiding conflict. And we saw, especially with Luca, after she broke up with him, that she didn't want to keep breaking his heart over and over again, and her solution was avoidance. Not the best method, but an understandable one. And I feel like that's what she was kind of trying to do here with Cat Noir. Now for the problems I have with this episode. No Lady Noir confrontation, so really there was no Lady Noir resolution. Cat Noir never told Ladybug how he's been feeling, that he was left out or unneeded and annoyed with being kept in the dark. And he never explained to her why he had given up his Miraculous in the first place. So as far as Ladybug knows, she doesn't know anything. She has no idea how much Cat Noir has been struggling, and in her mind, the only reason he gave up the Miraculous was because she wasn't paying him enough attention. Which is true, except that they made it seem like the issue was she was not paying enough attention romantically. This leads to my biggest problem with the episode. Cat Noir's problem wasn't love. Yes, he is in love with Ladybug, and yes, he is hurt when she rejects him all the time. But he also tries to respect her wishes, as evidenced in Glass Eater 2.0, and he has never blamed her for not sharing his feelings. Throughout Season 4, Adrien has been shown to be more and more excluded, and he has started to doubt his value to Ladybug, and even his future as Cat Noir. He knows that Ladybug has been keeping things from him, but he also knows that it isn't the same for everyone else. he somewhat knows that Ladybug shared her identity with Scarabella. I say somewhat because there's been a debate on whether or not he actually was paying attention to her, but at least in the back of his mind, he must know this. And he also knows that she gave Alia and Nino their Miraculouses at the same time, allowing them to share their secret identities despite being a couple. All of these things have been eating away Adrien, and Ladybug's flippant and often harsh responses to him have only been adding to it. However, in the episode of Kuro Neko, the only real reason given for Adrien suddenly renouncing his Miraculous and refusing to take it back was due to his unrequited feelings toward Ladybug. While Plague did mention it was because Ladybug had been so busy with all the other cheeses she'd forgotten about an important one that caused it to get all moldy, and in non-cheese terms means that Cat Noir felt left out, the rest of the episode only talked about the problem being his love for her. For example, let's look at the big resolution moment where Catwalker/Adrien says he understands that Ladybug takes care of everyone equally, and that just because Cat Noir has feelings for her doesn't mean she should treat him differently than anyone else. On the one hand, yes, it's good that Adrien acknowledges that just because he has feelings for Ladybug doesn't mean he should expect her to treat him differently or respond in the same way, and it was sweet that he realized while she takes care of everyone else, she has no one to take care of herself, so he decides to do that for her regardless of her feelings for him. On the other hand, no! This doesn't solve any of the strain that's been building between them all season. Ladybug should treat Cat Noir differently, not because he is in love with her, but because he is her partner and he needs to be in on her plans. I mean, if she's able to tell Alia all this important stuff about the Miraculouses and being a guardian and all that, why can't she tell some of that stuff to Cat Noir? Does this mean that Ladybug has to tell him everything? Not necessarily, but this would have been the perfect opportunity for her to explain why she can't tell him everything, specifically her identity, and that is, I believe, because of Cat Blanc. It was confirmed in Senti Bubba that Marinette not only remembers Cat Blanc, but it was impactful enough to give her nightmares, and it's reasonable to assume it's one of the biggest things causing her to pull away from Cat Noir. In Senti Bubba, she has a nightmare, and then in the very next episode, Glaciator 2.0, she reacts very strongly to the idea of the two of them being in love, and the fear of one of them becoming akumatized has been very solidified in her mind, as shown even in this episode. So yeah, none of that was resolved or even mentioned. The third and final problem, Ladybug's infatuation with Catwalker. Before I go on, I would like to point out that Catwalker was specifically and purposefully designed to contain all the qualities and characteristics that Ladybug likes about Adrien. He was thoughtful, gracious, courteous, kind, gentle, brave, and confident, and was purposefully trying to please her, as well as a skillful partner and a wise hero. Not to mention it actually is Adrien. So, to be fair, it makes sense that she would be drawn to it. However, the problem was it had no lasting impact on the story. Ladybug meets Catwalker. Ladybug thinks Catwalker is perfect. Because he is so perfect, they can't work together, and Ladybug can now decide to give the Miraculous back to Cat Noir? What was the point? If it was supposed to be Ladybug realizing how much she needed Cat Noir, why did they give her a perfect replacement, then make her want the old one back without an explanation? To be fair, Ladybug did seem to feel bad that she hadn't stopped Cat Noir from giving up his Miraculous. She was clearly worried about him enough to jump to the idea of him being akumatized, another nod to Cat Blanc, and said at the end how she lost and missed her kitty too. But most of the episode she was just mesmerized by Catwalker and never put into words why she needed or wanted Cat Noir back. However, all of this boils down to one single point that would have saved the entire episode and give it a lasting impact to carry on to the rest of the series, and that is this. Ladybug needs to find out that Catwalker was Cat Noir. Originally, before the episode came out, I thought this would be how they started the argument. Ladybug would find out midway it was Cat Noir all along, and the two of them could have talked it out. But even if they kept everything else in the episode the exact same, let the focus be on love, let Ladybug be infatuated with him instead of missing Cat Noir, skipped any argument or Lady Noir resolution, if the only thing that changed was that Ladybug found out Catwalker had been Cat Noir, the impact could have carried into the rest of the series. 3 very important things would come out of that knowledge. The first is that Cat Noir was willing to accept that she didn't have to treat him differently and wanted to take care of her anyway. Because from her perspective, that was just some random guy talking, but imagine if she'd understood that it had been Cat Noir, that would have more meaning to her, and let her know that he'd resolved things on his own. The second is that not only is Cat Noir confident, courageous, and funny, but he could also be thoughtful, respectful, and literally fit our ideas of perfect. Just imagine the thought process Marinette would have after figuring out that she had been infatuated with Cat Noir all evening. Now, I'm not saying this would make her fall in love with him right away, and I'm sure she would just completely push this out of her mind. But somewhere in the back of her head, she would know this, and that might even make her more scared of Cat Blanc, which would be sad, but they also need to talk about that. However, it's definitely something that could help push toward the reverse love square, and her seeing Cat Noir in a different light. And for the third and final important thing that would come out of this knowledge, she should never trust anything Plague says. What are your thoughts on the episode? What do you think could have been done to make it better? Do you think Ladybug should have discovered Catwalker was Cat Noir? I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, you are miraculous in your own way. P.S. I can't take full credit for this idea, as it was the frenzied, obsessed work of my subconscious mind, since it literally came to me in a dream. In my dream, after they defeat Kuro Neko, Catwalker is on his way home when he sees Marinette pacing angrily on her balcony. Think Glaciator 2.0. She lets him come over, and he takes a seat on the railing behind her, and she sits on a seat next to him and continues her rant, which I think was about how cats are so hard to understand and nothing but trouble and all that. And as she's talking, she must have mentioned Catwalker's name, because he interrupts her and says, "Actually, I'm also Cat Noir." Then, best part of the dream, Marinette's reaction. She stops talking with a look of complete shock, and then literally topples sideways out of her chair, classic Marinette style, and would have hit the ground except Catwalker, of course, manages to rush and catch her. Then, all of a sudden, a baby starts crying, waking me up, and I realized it was just a dream. Right when it was getting good. That's actually what inspired me to write my fanfiction I mentioned. I had to know how it ended. If you do too, I'll leave the link to it in the description below. Wait till you hear my Adrian as a scented monster dream.